Hello, I'd like to talk about this standard library and also about this Build, a new kind of way to develop workflows. And Build allows you to effortlessly create automated workflows with a simple, intuitive UI. I don't think it's that intuitive, but it's quite good. It connects to standard library APIs and automatically generates high-quality code. So you can link across to things. It's a little bit limited in what it does, but it's quite nice. Now, within the standard library, if we just look at the documentation as to what it is, what is standard library, it's basically you're trying to do some automation, and if you think Zapier, but you actually have control over some of the code, so you can actually add other bits and things to it, and I quite like it. It's a little bit more in depth than Zapier. I always think Zapier is a bit light, but then it's not as powerful as Postman, but I think it actually has the time triggers on it, so scheduling, and I can't recollect from the stuff which I was doing with Postman whether that had a lot of those as well. So it's somewhere in between. I found it was definitely it's got a little bit more than Zapier, and if this then that one, but it's not as intimidating as Postman. When I first looked at this before, there's a few videos out there and they show this interface, which is a very intimidating interface for some of the things, and I was a bit bothered by that, so I sort of never took it too far at that particular point in time. Then they came up with this new build interface, which is this one here, which is quite friendly, and so I followed along with the tutorial, which is the getting started tutorial here, which actually just gets an Airtable, and all an Airtable is basically it's just a whole lot of tables, and somewhere notionally it's a bit like a database or a spreadsheet type thing. It's a bit like Notion. You can get a free account with this as well, and on this particular one there's one already pre-set up that the standard library used to do the example for doing the tutorial. So I thought the tutorial was very, very good about how to actually get to the thing linked to a new stuff, how to build the whole thing up and do all of that. And within the free version it's a little bit limited as to the number of things that you can link to. But you get a free account, you can sign up for free, you get monthly compute credits of about $5, and you see at this point in time I'm down to 378, and I've only been playing with it today, but I built quite a few little apps and been testing them out. And then so the price per workflow compute second is this much here, but I've chewed through a few, mainly because some of my things are actually happening at minute intervals, so they're which is what the tutorial actually suggests that you actually do in this particular one here. So the follow-on tutorial I thought was very, very good. I just did this part of the tutorial. I now see that there's a couple of other tools about modifying the tutorial and doing some other things through here that I may have to follow through later on. But just going through the first one here, this is quite a nice friendly interface. It's got this overview thing. So the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to do a scheduler, which is basically the tutorial, and we're just going to run it once a minute just at this point in time, just so that we can see what the effects are on some of the things. So it says basically we're doing a scheduled workflow. We actually have a timing coming through once a day, once a week, something like that, and it says what time do you actually want to trigger it, and this is another little thing, at what time zones do you actually want to do it, which is quite good because I do know there's a bit of an oddity, but we'll actually just go through back to the once a minute, which is what it started off with. Now it doesn't offer too many connections. It's got this Airtable Clearbit crawler, which just does a simple web scrape, a Giphy, GitHub, a Gmail, which I was quite excited about, and also Google Sheets, which I've been playing with, and an HTTP request. So the HTTP request means that you can actually do a one-off call, and so it calls once, so you actually activate it, so it's a manual activation. There's Slack, which I don't use. There's an example inside the video coming through here of using the Stripe with the Airtable of actually doing the data. I don't use Stripe either, so and then there's one called Utils, and inside here that you can do an SMS text and send it to yourself, so that was quite good. So anyway, this one here we just go through and we're going to do an Airtable, and we're going to do we're going to query select rows by querying a base. And the base is really a sheet from that point of view. The next one that we're going to do is that we're going to do the utils, and we're going to do a send an SMS. So we're going to get some information out of the Airtable and we're going to put it into an SMS. The other one that I'm going to do is that I'm going to do a Gmail, and the trigger for that one is that we're going to compose and send a message. So basically we're going to take the information from the Airtable and we're going to send it and email it to ourselves. So we're going to send it by SMS, and we're also going to send it by Gmail. And the other thing that we're going to do, which I'm quite interested in, is the Google Sheets. Now I'm actually interested in reversing that, of actually grabbing stuff from Google Sheets and messing around with, but I'll just follow on the tutorial at this point in time. And in this one here, we're going to insert a row into a spreadsheet. So this is the one. So I quite like this. This is an overview. So what we're going to do, we've got a schedule, and we're going to do some sort of workflow down here. And so we just say create a workflow. So that's the top level stuff. So the next one that we actually have to do, and there's a whole load of steps that we go on down here, is that we actually start going through and linking to the resources. Now inside the tutorial it actually says how to link to a new resource and things like that. So inside your account you can actually get an API key that you link to through here. So this is my Airtable account which would do that. But when again, I've already pre-set up those and just follow the tutorial on that. So here it's now connecting to that sheet. So it's going through and setting the sheet. So this is the sheet that I downloaded from them, but I created a new table on top of here. So this is the table that I will be querying, not the one that they've actually got. So this was my way of practicing, of actually trying something else. So the next one we're going to do, we're going to link to our Gmail, and this one I think basically asks for your email address, and then actually you had to go through and confirm that you allow it inside a Google account. And the same with the Google Sheets, that we're going to go through and do that one there. So we've linked to through all of those. Excuse me, I'm just going to go into here and blow these ones here away, because that was my previous test that I'm going to do. I've done. So inside here, we've gone into the build side of things. We've now gone through to that part of the process where we've linked up into all of our other programs through there. So that's good. It doesn't actually ask that you do it with the SMS one. So now we actually have to do the interface. So this one here is said we've linked to my Airtable, and we actually linked to a specific base, or which was this standard libraries one which you can download. So I've now gone into there, and then I'm actually going to say which table that I'm going to do. So if I go into there and look at it, it's a table called data. So I'm just going to drag that over to there so that we got them next to each other. So I'm just going to call it data. And the key, if we go into there, I want to query by the date. So I actually want to say, tell me any upcoming events that go through. So the query in here is, so we're going to look up the date, and we're going to select an operation through. So there's a few SQL type queries that you can go through on here, and we're going to use is after this date time. So that's supposed to be date. And the value for that is that we're going to have to put it in, and this format is different, but you'll see it in the tutorial, and that's doing this 08 dash, and then I'm going to put 05, because if we look at the standard library, you've got one on the 4th, one on the 7th, and one on the 8th. So we go back into the build, and then we do that. Now, if I just run this test here, it's going to error out, and I'll just do this as an example because it's what they do. You'll see that it errors out because I've set this one here up, but it's going to try and do both of these things here, or it's going to do that, but we haven't set this one here up. So we haven't got the whole workflow working yet. So it's going to come through and it says, okay, then I've linked to the table. I've got that. I'm trying to link to this one, but I've got an error because I haven't got the next interface done. So if I just close that one down and then run that test again, since all we're doing here, asking it to do is just pull that information from that Airtable there. So we're using that Airtable as an API. So if we had stuff going into that Airtable and updating all the time, we could actually just get that. So you see that it's come through. Now, one thing that I actually want to point to you here is that there's two dates. There's this one here, and the name of this one's EV2, and this one's EV1. And EV1 is on the 6th, and this EV2 is on the 7th. And yet, if you look on here, EV1 is on the 7th, and the EV2 is on the 8th. So it's actually using, I think it's using GMT time, so, and I'm in New Zealand, so I'm 12 hours ahead of that, so it's actually erroring off. So any queries I do on this minute one, it's actually time, the time differences running through there. Anyway, that's come through successful, so that's good. We've set up that one there. So we now go through and we'll open up the utils one and we will go and do that. So first of all, this just asks for a telephone number, so we go 064 2102335042, and that's the number, and it says what do we want in the body. Now if we just go through and scroll down inside the tutorial, oops, wrong one, and go down into the tutorial, what's happened to the tutorial? Getting started. You'll see that there's a way that you can do it, but in fact he's got a bit more queries on his one here, so we're just going to grab this information. You see it can actually do this one here. So this one here is the variable that it's going and looking for inside that query. So the query is going through here and it's got two fields, and because it's an array, JavaScript array, the first column or the first bit of information is 0 and the next one is number 1. So coming back into the build one there, we're just going to, if I come through, and what I can actually do in here is go and query some stuff through here. You see here it's actually going through and saying get me row 0, which would get me that information there, but it's not getting me the next one through here. So we will need some way of iterating through that one, and they use this example here. So they actually had this code going through here. But one of the things with this is that they're asking for the name and they're asking for the date. And if we go through and look at the information, you'll see we have name, date, and we also have some notes. So what they're sending by text is the name and then the date. That doesn't really tell me much at all. So I actually just went through and edited that. I think that's part of the next part. And I added another bit of information. Oh, damn, where is it? That's something else. Oh, sorry. And I added it, so it had the name and the date, and then I added one called the note field, and then it just says join them all with a comma. So we're going to grab that bit of data there. So let's go and grab that bit of data there and go and bash that into our build code through there. And we'll put that one into there and we'll say there. We'll talk about these keys in another one. So now we've got both of those two. Now if I just pause that one, this would error out again because it's not pulling in any information, so it can't send anything because it hasn't got anything to send. So we need the Airtable one to be open to run this. So if we now test this one here, we're now testing a workflow. So this is basically the tutorial that we're actually running through the data. Now you see we're in developers mode here, so we actually haven't created this yet. And you see there that information comes through and you just heard a little beep, and that was on my phone that did that, but I'm not really worried about that. So now I'm going to pause that one there and I'm going to open up Gmail, and now I'm going to edit the Gmail one. Now the Gmail, I'm actually just going to put one of my Gmail addresses in, and the subject is test Airtable. And we'll do that, and the text in there we'll actually just put in the same information that we actually had there as a string, and we can go and do the test on that one now. Now this one here should fire through and it should send a test email to me, so we should get one of those running. And so we've still got this one operating, and it's just sending that one through. It's thinking about it and it's saying yes, we've got that data from there. Now hopefully it will pop up here. So anyway, while we're waiting for that one to happen, we're just going to pause that one there and we're going to go into the Google Sheets. Now the Google Sheets, again, we've linked through here, and now we need to go and look at that information. So you can give the spreadsheet ID. So if I go into the spreadsheet, this here is the spreadsheet ID. Now it does actually say that it's optional, because we've already directly connected to that sheet. Now it says what range is required. Now on that spreadsheet, I've actually changed it, and I'm going to change this spreadsheet name to Z, say. So what I'm going to say, there could be two spreadsheets on here. So if I actually had another spreadsheet in here, which sheet is it going to? So what we actually want to do in that build one is that we actually want to call, I think we call it Z, exclamation mark, which means go and look on sheet Z, and then go from A1 to C. So that means look from Z, A1 to C. So it's going to look all the way down there. So what it's saying, if we just bounce back. Now, the reason why it's A1 is it needs to find the headers so that it can order things in the same way. So it's going to sheet Z, it's going from A1 to C, and it says go and find the first empty row. So that's why we've just used C, so it does the whole column, and then insert some information. Now, what do we want to insert in? So we want to insert the name field, and we want to insert the name. So from here, we want to insert the name field, the date field, and the note field. So when we come back to the build, we go name, date, and a third one called note. And the value. The value then is part of that code. Now, I've actually got to write this out each time. If I just if I just go into there and I just click value there and put in row, it's just going to ask for row 0. So it's only going to give me the first bit of information. So it'll bring through EV2. But if I want all of them, and at this point in time it's not doing an iteration or anything like that, I've actually just chopped his bit of information up and brought it through. So I'm actually going workflow all of this and go and get me the name. So if there's 5 or 6 queries, it'll give the 5. So I'm just going to cut and paste that. Now, here's another thing here. You'll see this band here hides half the information in the back, which can be a bit frustrating. Anyway, I'm just going to go through there and grab the other one there. And where are we? Back in there. And put that into there. And go into the last one. And we'll get the note through there. Copy, and we'll get the note, and we'll put that into there, and we'll go, yeah, we've got everything that we need, run it. So now it's going to the Airtable, sucking the data out of there and pushing it into the Google Sheets. So this is still a test environment. We're still running this. Now, when we go to the next phase, you see we've gone a few steps going through here. We're testing each one individually, and we're testing, and it's actually, if we go down here, it says, yeah, it's going to grab the data through again. Now, one thing that we can go and look in the sheet, and it's done it. Now, if we actually just go through, back to the build again, and we run it again, it should add another line, and it should go through and find the next first empty row afterwards. So if we come back through here, there it comes through. So that's running as well. Now, if I just go into my Gmail account, you'll see inbox test Airtable. So we've got that one through there. I don't know, it's interesting that that one here comes through, and it's coming through, it's being sent from this email address, and it's going to this email address. But it seems to put it into the inbox in this instead of the outbox, which I find a little bit weird. But anyway, who cares? It's getting where it needs to get to. So I've tested all of those things off so that we can run them all now, and then we can run the next. So it's gone through here, and if we run this test event, it'll let us go through into the next part of the process. So it's now going to send an SMS text to my mobile phone. It's going to send me a Gmail, and it's going to send me, and it's going to add a row into the account. So very shortly there'll be one there, and there's a click on that, and there's the email coming through. So it's done all of those things all together. So that's marvelous. Now, when I hit the next button here, it says name the project. So I'm just going to do this as Max's test minute. So I'm going to call it that, and I'm going to give this thing a name through here, and I'm just going to go and call it XXX dash for that, just to give it a different name. Okay, then now we deploy the API workflow. So what this now does is I think it compiles it and it sends it to the cloud. So the other thing that it's doing is giving them tokens. So the tokens actually says yes, it'll speak to it. So it knows the token's there, and then it'll actually let it talk, so you don't actually have to do a lot of stuff. So now we go into the view project area. So when we go into the project area, we come into a slightly different environment that shows all of our previous projects through there, and we've got our projects. So this one's coming into our Max's test minute one, and we've got this environment here. Now, I don't think this is a paid area that you can actually have. Archive project means you tear down. That means it just deletes it all, and that. So if I go into the dev area, if I just click on this little link through here, what it'll actually do is it will show that query. So it's just gone and made that query going through there. So the other thing that I can do is that I'm just going to open this in a new link just so that we can actually see what happens through there. And this pushes us into another area of the environment that actually shows what the script looks like if it's done, or this part of the test that it's going through. If it's in Node.js or JavaScript or in Python or in Ruby or in Shell or in curl, which are all ones which are doing the API talking, and you can run the function there, and it's just going a little bit balmy there as it's testing those ones there. So if I go back to that build environment, one of the things which I found, I was doing this per minute and my credits were just disappearing through the floor. That was happening quite quickly. My money was going down quite a lot. So I was suddenly thinking, how do you stop it? So if we just go back to here, you'll see that we can just delete the whole project completely. The other thing that we can do is to go into the dev environment. Now, the reason why we can't go and edit, now if we go and edit through this point here, this takes you into that code environment. So basically, you can't go back into that build environment. Now you've got the whole raw data, and I think it's just compiled all of that information. But if we come back into here, one of the things which we can do in the advanced thing is that it removes all integration. So it doesn't send it to Google Sheets, it doesn't send it anywhere else at all, but it leaves the API endpoints. That means you can go through and query the API. So sorry, you can query this this sheet here. So the query that we created, which says go and find me everything after this certain date here, then we can do that. Now again, instead of the certain date, you can actually have today or something like that, so it actually just automatically just show things in the future. So there's ways that you can edit some of those things through there. Now when I went into the code, or that code is created, sorry, this is the wrong one, somewhere on there, that one there, when I was looking at the actual code, there we are here, I couldn't see where I was suddenly thinking, I would like to adjust it from a minute to an hour or something like that. I actually couldn't find that time area, but I found very frustrating. You know, I just went back into the build environment just to do the testing one. So what I actually do now is, you hear the clicking all the way because it's doing it once there, Bob. It says to the enter the environment name dev to proceed. So I actually have to type DEV in here, and then it will do the confirm removal. I'm not going to do that at the moment. I just want to go back into the main area here. If I actually want to archive the project, again, if you want to bin it, you've actually got to type in all of this, or else cut and paste it from here. But actually the other interesting thing, if you cut and paste it from there, when it comes into there, you see it's got this new break line coming through here, and you've got to make sure that you delete all of the spaces and the /n, or whichever one it is. Then it'll confirm to archive to actually delete that. So just be aware of that, that if you're just doing it to play around with, just to test the things out, that's what it's actually doing. There are informations on some of the things on the history, and you see you're live, but it doesn't let you change it from live. So that's the thing, is I don't think once it's live, because I think it gets pushed up into the cloud and that's where it stops. So what I'm doing with some of these is that I'm just actually stopping those. So I'm confirming the removal at this point here, and it says confirm the removal, and then all I've got left, if I try going back into here now, and if I go into the dev environment, I've only got the HTTP request. So if I actually click on this one here, all it'll do is it'll pull down that information from that API, which in some ways is the important bit. The other ones is really, what do you want to show at the other end? So this one here is actually the data that I've got, and you can filter this. So if you end up adding a whole lot of extra information to your table, or you end up at this point in time, that's all filtered off. We've only asked for certain things, but if there was more information that we do, then that would all come through so that you can then start building another API. So from the point of view of testing this out, harder than Zapier and if this then that, not as hard as Postman, but I can't recollect in Postman whether that actually has a time interval thing so that you can actually just get that activating every day or every week or something like that. So it's an interesting thing to do, but it is a little bit limited on the amount of things to do. When you actually get into this coding area, I'm wondering whether you can actually start calling off different things. In fact, some of the videos that they have, he's doing some DNA sequencing, so he's going and querying some other API, whether that's in something that he's built. But the other thing with this is that you can also create your own APIs. So again, on this example here, which is basically doing a calendar event, it would be nice if it had Google Calendar as well, in my opinion. But for something that's free to use and for actually like if you wanted to set up and you wanted to pull information in or do queries on a certain big table, like you had a massive Excel table that you actually had a whole load of data in and you wanted a variable query on that, you could most probably do it and use that as an API for the information that you got in your API. And so inside here you can do some testing and running within that. And one of the ones which he had on an earlier one is some very, very simple stuff that he was doing. So if I run this one here, you'll see it's actually running. I think on that one, why isn't that one running? Run. Why is that? I must have done something nasty like deleted or something. So that one's not running at this point in time. But this one's a little kind of hello world type exercise one. And you can do a bit more here. But for the startup, and I think just for coming into this and sort of taking the next step, this is a very good playground. It'll allow you to go from the build environment and then starting to learn some of the things in this environment here. So anyway, I hope that's been of interest to you. Thank you very much for watching. If you like it, can you give it a thumbs up? Thank you very much.